What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right. So I heard about some comments that Russell Westbrook made in an interview talking about championships. Now I heard him say something similar to this about a year ago, and I didn't like it. You know what I'm saying? I didn't like it. I thought at the time that he was just saying it because of the media knock on him. You know that he wasn't a winner, that he wasn't going to win championships. He couldn't win championships on his own. He couldn't lead a team. So I thought he was just saying that, like, a lot of players say that, like, well, a championship's not going to define me, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Um, we've heard a lot of players say that. But when he got traded to the Lakers, I thought to myself, well, part of me didn't like it because I don't like the idea of a player ring chasing to that extent. Um, Especially when you consider that Russ is not quite at that stage of his career where he's a role player, or at least the perception is that he's a role player. But you're thinking that he's going to LA because he wants to win a ring. So for him to say in an interview that still winning the championship isn't going to be the end all be all, I mean, you can't look. You can't say shit like that as a Los Angeles Laker, man. You can't say that. It's to me. There's three franchises in the NBA where you can't say that shit and don't think Lakers Nation not gonna fucking be on your head. You cannot say that shit as a Laker. You cannot say that shit as a Celtic, even though they've been going through some woes more than some wows in the last 30 years. Or you know what I'm saying? And you can't say that as a Knicks fan. Look, the Knicks ain't been shit for the most part in over a decade, or almost a decade at least. And Knicks fans still don't accept that. Knicks fans are hungry, craving a championship caliber team. When you look at the New York Knicks from the 1960s into the 2000s, even though they only won two championships, going back into the 50s, I believe, they still competed in multiple NBA finals. And they always had, from the 70s and the 90s at least, they had a championship caliber team. So those three franchises expect something. You can't go to LA and say, well, look, bro. Like obviously, you out there, you play hard, you're super competitive. You got to be super competitive when you're getting blown up by 30 and you yelling around the court. You can't stop me, bro. Like you might can get away with that if you're like a fucking multiple time champion and shit. People are just gonna spin it and say, man, this guy is competitive even when his team getting blown out. But bro, now I'm starting to look, a lot of people gonna start thinking, okay, you're obviously competitive, but what are you trying to seek out here on the court? Aren't you trying to win? Or are you just more competitive about your individual numbers? People are gonna start wondering about this. Are you more concerned about putting up triple doubles or winning? Now I've been taking up for Russell Westbrook for years because in him, despite his asshole personality, despite all the things that people don't like about him, you have to at least admire two things about Russell Westbrook. He plays fucking hard and he's super competitive. Okay? Those are two admirable qualities. He's also a great rebounder. No matter what people might say about him stat padding, but he's a great rebounder and he's a decent passer. He's led the league in assists, I think, twice, if I'm not mistaken. So he's a good passer, not the best, but he's good. He has good qualities about his game. He has a lot of flaws, obviously, But I see a lot of potential. I saw a lot of potential in this guy. But to say that you don't really care about winning like that, you can't say that, bro. Because now people are going to start redirecting their focus on you, too. You've been playing well as of late. So obviously you do care about how you fit on this team. What is the ultimate goal, Russ? If you don't care about winning, then why did you go to this team? Why didn't you just stay with Washington or go lead another bottom feeding team where you can get your triple doubles? At least you have the excuse that you're not having. Look, the excuse I always have for Russ before this season, since Kevin Durant left, my excuse for him was, hey, he's not really playing with a lot of guys. And OKC, okay, he did have Victor Oladipo, but the other guy was with Andre Roberson, who hasn't played in the NBA in almost 2.5 years. Okay, that's about it. Didn't have a lot of scores. Didn't have any fucking shooters. You go to Washington. Yeah, you got Bradley Beal, who's a decent outside shooter, great scorer, at least a volume scorer. But outside of him, you didn't have a lot of shooters. Okay, now you have talent on this team. You got talent on this team, and they're barely above 514 and 13. It's not all on you, Russ, but people got to wonder at some point, how great a player are you? And what do you want? What do you want? What do you want your legacy to be? Do you want to be an NBA champion? Do you want to be a player that led the Lakers to a title? Even if you didn't win a championship, people want to believe that you went out there as that being your primary focus, your primary goal. When you say things like, well, yeah, I don't really care if I win a title. When you're playing with the Lakers legends are going to look at you a certain way. The Lakers fan base, Lakers Nation going to look at you a certain way. And even some of us fans of yours, the few fans you do have, are going to start looking at you a certain way. You can't talk like that, period, when you wear the purple and gold. I once did a video, probably the worst video I ever did now in retrospect. I once compared you to Michael fucking Jordan. What the fuck was I thinking? What the fuck was I thinking when I compared you to Michael Jordan? Michael Jordan would never talk like that. Never. 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 Now I get it. A lot of great players haven't won titles. And they may say it didn't define them. Okay, yeah, it didn't define them off the court. They created generational wealth for their family. They were great players. You know what I'm saying? They were able to do a lot of great things for their families. And you can never deny they weren't great Hall of Fame individual players. But you can't tell me that Reggie Miller, Patrick Ewing, Charles Barkley, John Stockton, Karl Malone, and the list goes on and on, Dominique Wilkins. You can't tell me that if they were able to do it all over again, they would trade in all of those all-star accolations, all-star nods, and all that acclaim, and any scoring titles, and any all-star MVPs. They would trade all that shit in for a championship, right? And with Reggie Miller, I'm gonna do a video on later on today. Reggie could have came back and won a cheap title with the Celtics. We all remember that. But he wanted to win a real championship, okay? a real championship while he was in his prime. You're somewhat close to your prime, Russ. People can see you're slipping a bit, but you're still close enough to your prime for people to look at you as at least a top 25 player, 20 player in the league or so. Okay. Um, you're setting yourself up for failure, man. That's all I'm gonna say is you're setting yourself up for failure when you talk like that. Okay? You cannot talk like that with the Lakers. You know, you got to handle yourself more professionally. People expect certain things with the Lakers. That one championship that LeBron won, it's great. But Lakers legends, they win multiple titles. Like I said before, George Mikan won 5. Jerry West won 1, but that's not enough even for Lakers Nation. That's why I look at them as a failure because he went to the finals 9 times, only got 1 title. Magic won 5. Kobe won 5. Shaq won 3. That's what Lakers Nation. That's what they expect when they have a team full of fucking top 75 players like they do now, and they're barely above 500 going on 30 games. So that's all I got to say about it, man. Uh, Russ is seriously out of pocket talking about, a championship won't define me. You don't talk like that, and especially as a Laker. But anyway, that's all I got to say. Tell me what you guys think.